My day's been going pretty well. It's a little bit warmer outside. Things are nice. This book I want to talk to you here is Hello, Molly, a memoir by Molly Shannon. She was on Saturday Night Live for like 6 seasons, I think, something like that. Here's the back of the book, also funny. She's hilarious, really funny person. She did Mary Catherine Gallagher, Superstar, and she did the NPR ladies where they are interviewing Alec Baldwin, and then she did another famous character is an old lady who's 50 years old, and she's into aerobics and super athletic, and she's full of energy and vibrant. She's very funny woman. She was also in the movie Osmosis Jones, if you've seen that movie. She plays the teacher that Bill Murray's character pukes all over at the science fair. And then he like pops a zit on her face awkwardly. It's a very weird. Have you ever seen that movie Osmosis Jones? Random reference, I know. And so this is, I'm going to hop into her book here at page 150, 109 here. And then we'll read another part after this. She talks about finally getting an agent. This is before Saturday Night Live and before she really had much success with anything. But she finally is passing her headshots around, and she finally has an agent. It's the same agent as Gary Coleman, who was a big star back in the 80s and I guess the 90s as well. He was on a show called Different Strokes. He's like a little dude. He played a kid, but he was had some kind of, I guess you call it a disease or a disability, where he never really looked older or got bigger. He was I don't know, 4 feet tall or so, and he just always looked like a kid his whole life. He never really matured that much into his body or anything. I don't know what the condition is called. So, but I just know that he just looked like a kid his whole life. So he was real famous at this time. This TV show was on prime time. It was called Different Strokes. He was the main. He was really funny on it. So he's a big star. He has a lot of money at the time. And so her agent is bringing her and Gary Coleman to meet her in New York City, where she's living. And we'll hop right into the book here, page 109. In the fall of 1987, when I was back at school, I got a call from Mark. He said he was coming to New York City with Gary Coleman and asked if I wanted to meet them for tea at the Plaza Hotel. I was over the moon. Meeting my West Coast agent at the Plaza Hotel. La-dee-da. When I arrived, Gary stood up like a gentleman and Mark sat me next to him. After pushing in my chair, Gary held my hand. He was 18 years old, but so little. I thought he was cute as a button. He was all dressed up in an expensive suit. He was also very flirtatious with me throughout the tea, saying, "You remind me of Kimberly from Different Strokes." I was flying with excitement. It was the biggest compliment. I loved Dana Plato. She was so cute and bubbly. I couldn't believe that I reminded Gary of his co-star. I was thinking, that means I could make it in Hollywood. Maybe I'll be on the next Different Strokes. If only I could be in her position. We had a great time, laughing and joking. Then they asked me if I wanted to come up and see Gary's suite, which was the presidential suite on the top floor. I said, sure. Gary held my hand on the elevator. The suite was huge. Gary showed me around, and when we got to his room, he closed the door and said, "Sit on my bed." I sat on his bed. From there, I had a view of his kidney dialysis machine in the corner. He hopped up on the bed next to me. The possibility of something sexual occurring hadn't even crossed my mind. I was an innocent virgin still. And I had just turned 22. He was playful at first, tickling me, trying to lie on top of me and smooch me. Then when I pushed him away and stood up, Gary climbed up on the bed and jumped off, using it as a springboard to launch himself onto me, kissing me wildly and sticking his hands under my shirt. But he was so little. I was able to just flip him back off onto the floor. It wasn't very hard. He bounced right back onto the bed and wrapped himself around me again. Bed jumping was clearly a technique for him. "Whoa," I said. "Hey, come on, come on." And I flipped him back off onto the floor. He got back up and came at me again. I shouted, "Come on, Gary, knock it off. I don't even know you." I was laughing nervously. When he started kissing my neck, I told him, "Okay, this is not funny, Gary." I threw him off again. This happened multiple times. I would throw him across the room, and he'd use the bed to bounce right back on top of me. He kept bouncing back, and I kept flipping him off. It was exhausting. He would not give up. Finally, I started to walk away, and he changed strategies. He crawled back over, grabbing my ankle, wrapped his whole upper body around my calf, and then I was dragging him across the floor. As I walked, he held on tight. "No, Gary," I shouted. This time I had to shake him off my leg hard. Then I ran across the room and locked myself in the bathroom, out of breath. He followed, got down on the floor, stuck his hand under the door, waved his fingers, and said, "I can see you, silly Billy." What am I going to do? I wondered. My hair was all messy. I wanted to be on the next Different Strokes, but this was disturbing and sad and so awkward. With his dialysis machine out there in the hotel room, Gary's relentlessness was unlike anything I've ever experienced. While he was in the middle of this attack, I both couldn't believe what was happening to me and couldn't wait to tell my friends. I was already thinking about how I was going to tell them. I was turning it into a story as it was happening, but I was also genuinely shocked. Obviously, he assumed that I wanted to fool around because I came up to the hotel room, but he was so aggressive. It was crazy. I didn't run out until he stopped trying to get in. I waited till he gave up, and he was so little. I didn't feel physically in danger. It didn't seem that threatening, more kooky than anything else. Then I dashed out fast, blurting, "I gotta go!" Once I made it out the door, Gary straightened up and acted like nothing had ever happened. I went out into the hallway and back down on the elevator and found Mark in the restaurant near the lobby. Unfortunately, I didn't say anything that strong to him. I just told him, "That client of yours is wild. You gotta keep a lid on him. You have to watch that client of yours." I didn't say anything more. I never heard from Mark Randall again after that. I told this whole story on Conan in the late 1990s while Gary was still very much alive. He never contacted or contradicted me. He knew what had happened. What a tactic. I gotta try that sometime. Just kidding. It's horrible. Just use the bed as a trampoline and tackle a girl. He was too small to tackle her though. Anyway, I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit here and talk about this next part that Molly put in her book, where she gets a little bit philosophical, and I really like this a lot. It's really cool, and it's, I think, great advice for anybody, especially somebody who wants to be an entertainer of any kind, really. But I think it's just really cool life advice in general. We're hopping to page 120 down here towards the middle bottom area. This is still my spiritual business philosophy. Struggle itself is meaningful. You never know where anything is going to go. You don't know. I didn't know if I would ever make it, but I have a positive attitude, and I think people always see that in me. And I still pursue show business that same way. Now, decades later, what would I tell actors struggling, auditioning for a part would be, don't worry so much about getting some part. You never know what they're looking for, so don't take it so personally. Don't look at it like, I've really got to get this part. Just look at it as a meeting. When I go for an audition, I try not to be result-oriented. Maybe you're not right for this part, but they'll remember you later for something else. You never know. Just think, hey, I get to meet this person. Look at it as laying down your groundwork, building your relationships, maintaining your relationships. Hollywood is so small, it's like a high school. The town can seem so overwhelming at first. Geographically, it's giant and spread out, but people are all connected. Everybody knows everybody. You always have to hustle no matter what level you're at, so you might as well enjoy where you are and not compare. I've seen people who are superstar movie stars who still feel like they are only as good as their last movie, and they're full of fear and insecurity, and I think, wait a minute, you are scared? Well, in that case, I better just enjoy where I am, because if you're scared, then we are all fucked. And then it's important to go to the people who love you and who want to work with you, as opposed to trying to convince people who don't. If there's some obstacle, maybe there's a reason for it. I always look at stuff that way. No matter how far you've come, what level of success you've achieved, you're always going to have to get to the next place, so you might as well enjoy where you are. Be creative and enjoy your work. Just enjoy the process. I try not to buy into the feeling that I don't measure up. To me, that's an old childhood pattern. Hollywood can sometimes make you feel like you're never enough, with its ups and downs, but I try hard to enjoy life on Earth as an artist. It makes me feel good when people come up to me and say, "You make me so happy. You make us laugh." That's what it's all about, making people feel good. It's not about yourself. I like to think about what movies and storytelling do for people and how you can make people forget their troubles. I like the extension of myself. You can show an audience how a character is feeling. They're with you, and then maybe they can understand a part of themselves through the character or performance. It's really cool, right? I feel like that's great advice just for life in general as well, if you substitute just life for Hollywood or whatever. But that's it. Let me show you the book again. It is a memoir. Hello, Molly. Molly Shannon. Super cool lady. Great book to read. Really entertaining. And she talks all about her life and about Saturday Night Live. She's a really funny lady. The back, I believe, is funnier than the front. So here you go.